right, good evening and welcome to the next video. This video is going to be mostly for Red Hat Enterprise Linux audiences specifically, but a lot of the stuff you can do also as a CentOS administrator or scientific Linux administrator. There will be some skills that will be demonstrated that are useful for any variant of Linux, whether it's Ubuntu or Debian or Mandrake or Red Hat or CentOS, whatever. So whatever is your flavor, you can watch this video and learn something from it, but the target audience is specifically and explicitly Red Hat. So without wasting your time, the intended purpose of this video is to show you how you can take a CD-ROM or DVD-ROM with packages on it. In my case, they'll be virtual, and then you can mount the DVD physically. Again, it's a virtual machine. And then you can make use of the files that are on the media without copying them to your hard drive, and you can run yum commands to update your operating system. So let me first show you that we are running the Red Hat 7.4 operating system. There it is. So there's a certain command there. And what we're going to do is run through the steps it takes to mount the media. And I'm going to have to show you how to get the media mounted first by at least getting the ISO put in place in the DVD Rom drive. There we are. And if I do df-h, we will hopefully see that it's mounted. It's not, but why? Okay. Let's go ahead and do a mount command. mount/dev/sr0 onto, well, let me stop before I do that. I like to set up my systems for success. So there's a directory called /mnt, directly under slash, and we can find it right here. So cd into mnt. And before we proceed, you should see that the permissions on this are root owned, read, write, execute, and read, execute in terms of directory, and then read, execute for users, but only after it's been mounted. Something's been mounted onto MNT or some subdirectory of MNT as root. All right. So I need to show you the contents of this directory. We're inside the directory. There's nothing in here. So I like to create some directories. ISO in all caps for ISO files. Not going to be the example for this particular video. Media for mounting DVDs or CD media. In this case, again, it's virtual machine, but if you're going through these steps with a physical server, these steps will work for you, especially on a Red Hat. And maybe a couple other directories like USB key 1, USB key 2. Just because you never know when you're going to need to be able to mount USB key. Sometimes you might actually need to work with two of them at the same time. So let's get these directories created. I'm going to do a sudo command, and I'm going to do make dir, and then I'm going to create the file directories all at one time. There's an ISO, there's a media, USB key 1, USB key 2. It's actually me for my password as W French because I'm a generic user with escalated privilege capabilities because I'm in the wheel group. And I'm going to provide my password. There we go. It's in there. And now as a result, we should see that the ISO, media, USB key 1, and USB key 2 directories are all created. And they are. This is awesome. So let me CD back to my own home directory. There we are. Now we're in my home directory. And what I'm going to do is mount the DVD Rom that was put in the virtual machine, and I'm going to mount it onto /mnt/media. So I need to do this as sudo to escalate privilege for a moment to do the command and then come back to my own shell. Mount /dev/sr0. That's where you're going to find the DVD Rom drive path. And then we're going to specify where we want the files to be made available, which is /mnt/media in this particular example. We hit enter, And you'll see that devsr0 is write protected, which it is because it's technically an ISO, and you can't write to an ISO unless you're creating an ISO. And then we also mounted it as read-only, which makes sense because it's write protected. It's either mount it, read-only, or don't mount it at all, because you're not going to have success mounting it write-able as an ISO unless you're doing some other very advanced skills. All right, so let's cd into /mnt/media. Again, we just created that directory, so it should be empty until we did this mount command, and we have files. This is awesome. All right, this file, media.repo, is a repo file, obviously, .repo, and what we need to do is copy this file into the directory /etc /yum.repos.d so that we can make use of it after we tweak it. And then we can make use of the files that are in these two directories to complete the execution of a Yum update of the operating system to get it from 7.4 to 7.6. It's 7.6 because that's the name of the files, the 7.6 ISO, more specifically, not because that's the name of the file, but that's because the content of this particular ISO that we have mounted as a DVD Rom, virtually speaking. All right, so I'm going to cd to /etc /yum.repos.d, and I'm going to copy that file /mnt/media/media.repo into this directory. I didn't do it as root. I don't have permission to just simply write any files that I want into /etc or etc yum.repos.d directory, so I got to do sudo in front of this. There we go. It didn't challenge me for my password because I just used the sudo command in the last few minutes, so it's still in the cache. Good to know. We're in this directory, and now we have a media.repo file. I need to modify this file, but I have to do it with escalated privilege, so sudo. I'm going to use Vim. That's my favorite editor of all time, and I'm going to do the file name. Okay, this is a critical file. That's what makes this file so distinct for being able to do what we're going to do. With CentOS, you won't actually have the media ID equals parameter. We're not concerned about that. I'm going to modify GPG check to have a value of 1. There we go. And I'm going to add the reference for base URL equals. And we know that we just mounted that DVD onto /mnt media. And what base URL to purposes that it serves is to tell the yum command, hey, these are where you're going to find the packages directory and repo data directory that has the files in it that you need to know about. So here we are, and I need to do a special syntax here because we are using not a web URL, but we're using a file URL. So file : 3 slashes. The third slash refers to the slash of the root file system. And then we're doing /mnt/media. Great, we're doing pretty good so far. And then we need to do the GPG check is the next parameter that we have to make sure we get in place. GPG check, sorry, not GPG check, GPG key equals sign. And again, this is going to require not an HTTP URL, but a file URL, because we're not using the internet to do any of this yum commands like we normally might do on systems that are connected to the internet. And this video is actually intended for audiences that are trying to do yum updates of machines that are separated from the internet. They're disconnected from the internet, but you still have the requirement to update them on a regular basis. Whatever your reasons, you need to know how to do this. So / the etc directory, the pki subdirectory, rpm-gpg directory. Now we specify the name of the key because that's what we're looking for in this particular file here. Reference gpg-key-red hat-release. No typos. Everything looks good now. I changed this line. I added this line. I added this line. I'm going to go ahead and do a :x bang to quit and save the file. And I'm going to run a command deliberately so you can see an error. And then I'm going to do another change that will make the error go away and, more importantly, make this transaction successful. Again, I'm W French, not root. So I need to do the sudo command, and I do a yum clean all. All right. This is fine. This is actually pretty good. Now I need to do a sudo yum repo list. All right, now we have a problem. When you see a reference to repo md.xml.asc, it's looking for a specific cryptographic file. And this particular file we're not referencing anywhere. We don't need it. So what we need to do is turn off a feature that exists as a parameter we can toggle in the etc yum.conf file. So I got to do a sudo, because this file is going to be under etc. It's going to have root access only. And I'm going to do vim /etc/yum.conf. There we are. And I need to go all the way down to the bottom of this file to the repo_gpg check parameter. And I got to change the value of 1 to a value of 0. Quit and save this file. Again, I did it with sudo, so that's good. And now the file's changed. Let me rerun the sudo yum clean all. Didn't really change. And then do a sudo yum repo list. If you notice, the results are drastically different compared to this. For one, we don't see any references to repo md.xml.asc. We don't need it, so that's fine. More importantly, we don't see the error, which is really good. And now with the repo off the media mounted and made available, we see that there's 5,152 packages. This is an excellent result. So now we go ahead and clear the screen. And now what we're going to do is actually update this particular Red Hat 7.4 to a Red Hat 7.6. And if you notice, you'll see that this is March 5th, 2021. The most recent version of ISOs that are available on Red Hat are 7.9. There's no 7.10 yet. I know it's kind of confusing when you consider the fact that decimals don't do .10, even though .10 really refers to 10 hundredths. But we're talking about version numbers, so why Red Hat gets that far as opposed to just knocking it up to 8.0? That's because that's their version control method, and that's what we have to deal with. And we don't question their philosophies, because they're the brilliant minds that actually write the software, as a collective and make it available to us. All right, so I'm going to do a sudo yum update, because I'm not installing any distinct packages in this particular case. And I'm going to do enter key, and now we will see the system show a list of a whole bunch of packages that the system needs to update. That's what we're seeing screen off the top of the screen here. Okay, so here we have. We had a whole bunch of stuff that was, one tit for tat package listing, and then here is a summary table, a table. And this is a really long table because there's a whole bunch of packages that need to be updated. And you can see they're all alphabetically listed. And they're also broken down kind of by situation, like the installing for dependencies. And then way up at the top of this, if we can get to the top, I'm not sure if we can. I'll try and grab this over here. Alphabetically listed, capital first. Okay. Very top, you have the installing GNOME dictionary and GNOME shell and so on. So this is pretty typical Yum update. Well, I shouldn't say it's typical. But when you have an updated machine in quite a long time and you're going from one point release of a major to another point release of the same major, and just so you know, if you're new to Linux, you cannot update from 7.9 to 8.0. That's not possible. Red Hat, CentOS, Scientific Linux, they all agreed on this particular philosophy and strategy that you cannot upgrade a major release to major release ever. At least now as of current date of March 5th, 2021. All right, so let's go to the very bottom, back to where we were. So download size 858 megabytes. Hey, is it okay to go ahead and do this update? Yes, let's go ahead and do that. That's the whole purpose of the video, and that's kind of the thing we need to learn how to do, right? All right. Okay, so it took a moment, but it processed, and now it's saying, hey, we got to retrieve this key to make sure you can do updates here in the very near future. Is this okay? I'm going to go ahead and say yes, because it's okay to download the key. We are going to be getting it off of the media. Is this okay? Yes. All right. Another prompt for a similar key, but not exactly the same. You can tell that by the user ID reference here and here. They are different. And they're actually the same file name here and here, right? So just be aware of that. So go to Y and enter. All right, so now the actual update process is occurring. Sorry for clearing my throat on this recording. So there's 1,700 packages that need to be updated. And we are going to do the execution of this and record all of it so you can see what an actual update typically might look like. Especially since I don't have any idea how to stop and start recordings and then seamlessly re-aggregate them as a YouTube video being posted on YouTube. I'm not a YouTube guru. I am more of a Linux engineer with a lot of experience working with Linux and Unix. So that's why I'm doing this to help you out, but also because I can't be an expert at everything. I just don't have the time. And I guess it comes across as cocky. I don't mean to come across that way, but I just don't have the time. I have other things to do, like sleep. So what you can see is certain packages are being installed and other packages are being updated. And you can see which ones are which because you can see from here to there. Now this is different, just so you know, from doing a Yum update that involves a system connected to the internet. Because what happens first is it first identifies what packages are different that need to be pulled down from the internet. It will actually download the packages from a web-based server that has a URL, and it will download them from the URL to space on your hard drive. And hopefully you have the space. And you got to be considerate of, you have to be concerned and aware of the situation that when you're updating systems that are connected to the internet, you have to have enough space available for packages to be downloaded. And the packages are typically downloaded under the var file system. So you can see that we're only up to 326 packages out of 1,700. And even after this is all completed in terms of updating and installing, there's another phase that happens afterwards where it actually verifies the package installation was stable and successful. So we got to be aware of that. And I apologize, this is going to be a relatively long video because this is taking so long for a machine that's being upgraded from 7.4 to 7.6. Yes, for people who are new to Linux, you can upgrade Red Hat 7.4, CentOS 7.4, whatever flavor, whatever variant of Red Hat variant of Linux you're running, you can jump from 7.x to 7.x plus N. So just take that into consideration in case you need to make huge jumps. Now, if you're running applications on a server, as many people do, they run outside third-party vendor applications on their Linux operating system. Sometimes those applications might have certain dependencies that require you to jump through hurdles in order to successfully upgrade their software. So upgrading from 7.2 with some application all the way up to 7.9, because that's the latest version of this reality, and then upgrading your application might not be feasible because of the application, not because of the operating system. So be aware of that. As an engineer, Linux administrator, whatever your role is, you just want to be aware of these kind of gotchas. So I just noticed that my Windows operating system is indicating it's 1 a.m., but my Linux operating system is indicating it's midnight. So I got to find out what that's about. I'm in the right time zone. So we are slowly making progress with the 1,700 packages. We're only up to 646 packages complete, and we have quite a few more to go, at least 1,050, right? So I'll speak up every once in a while, just make sure that you know there's audio, and also to, let you know I'm still here. I haven't forgotten you. So if you want to take a potty break while you're watching this video, there's really nothing critical you're going to learn here in the next four minutes. Feel free to let this keep playing, walk away, and come back, and we'll be able to pick up without any lost time. Well, you can see a new kernel tools version was installed, 3.10.0.957. When you're doing an update, just so you know, for a lot of users that are new to Linux, updates won't add new software specifically unless it's doing it as a dependency to something that's being upgraded. So you'll see references to updating, and installing, updating. The installing is not deciding to install software that you didn't want. It's actually installing software that some other updated package also required. And it's very common. It is. So here's the second phase I was talking about, the cleanup. So we're making really excellent progress. It's going to take a few more minutes. And again, we're running on a virtual machine, but the results will actually be very similar for you doing an update to a physical machine. You would do exactly the same steps. There's no deviation. So while this video is running and we're actually wasting time here on waiting for this to complete, I wanted to mention that the next video I make will be very similar, but I'm going to make it change where I have the ISO loaded up into the virtual machine, specifically on a hard drive. What I'm going to do is mount it to demonstrate that example, and then the rest of the commands will be exactly the same, but I will create another video for that particular purpose. Basically as mounting an ISO file onto the /mnt/ISO directory that you saw me create at the very beginning of this video, and then copying the file over and then making the changes to media.repo to point to /mnt/ISO. And I think that should be suffice, but I'm going to probably end up deleting the media.repo file to demonstrate all those steps again. And there's another thing I'm going to have to do is install a separate piece of software from the currently mounted DVD Rom, virtually speaking, and install another package that makes it possible for me to install VirtualBox guest edition so that I can copy the file from my Windows operating system up through VirtualBox guest editions and make it available on a hard drive partition in the virtual machine. So I will not be demonstrating that because it's not relevant unless I do videos on VirtualBox, and I don't really see any purpose in that. But we're coming up to the very end here of this wrap-up, and what we need to do is demonstrate that Once this is all done, there's a requirement to reboot the machine, and we will do that in the video so that you can see how that works. Sat there for long enough that the screensaver kind of kicked in. I hit enter on the keyboard to keep the screen alive. The wrap-up process here after the last cleanup line shouldn't be too long, really. Just be patient and have some confidence, and we will see that this server's Linux prompt, the shell prompt, will come back. There we go, the verifying process. And this will go screamingly fast. Just realize that when you physically mount a CD-ROM and make it your file location for the RPMs, it'll be slower than actually mounting the ISO on the hard drive partition that's available and basically referring to the file through the operating systems and the internal system buses. Again, we're dealing with a virtual machine, but the performance is going to be very different for physical versus a virtual machine in terms of how fast it completes. Just like this. This is actually what we call a completed Yum update. It was extensive. There were a lot of packages, but you should see the word complete and then a Linux prompt. So what we need to do now is reboot the machine and see the operating system come back up to a screen that offers a logon prompt. So I'm still a generic user as wfrench. I'm going to do a sudo space reboot to get you used to using the sudo command in front of a lot of your escalated privilege requirement commands. Reboot requires escalated privilege for a lot of systems and a lot of environments, like professional environments, they will actually require that you have escalated privilege, i.e. sudo or su or some other command to do the command with the ability to shoot up to root, execute a command, and then come back down. Here we are. So it took quite a while since the last time we ran a sudo command. So the cache expired. That's fine. That's the way we want things to happen. I'm going to provide the password from my account, wfrench, and now we are rebooting the machine. This is normal, what you see on the screen. It's ironic. It doesn't look all that great, but it is correct. All right. So now what I need to do is eject the CD-ROM, by the way. I apologize. And let's go ahead and do that. Remove the disk. Force remount. So we just basically did the equivalent to hitting the physical eject button on the DVD ROM drive. So now what I need to do is reboot this machine and see if I can do that from here. Oh. So I'm going to go ahead and do the reset command here. Hopefully it does in Linux what I think it does. And I really don't feel comfortable doing this. So I'm going to actually close this server down. Basically, this can be the equivalent. Here we go, power off. This is the equivalent to physically hitting the power button and holding it for a few seconds. Okay, so we've ejected the DVD out of the machine. Now we're going to reboot the machine. Now we can see there's a listing in the grub menu. This is the grub menu for 7.6, which we did not have before, 7.4, which we were using before, was the only kernel, along with the kernel option for the rescue mode. We want to boot up off the new one and run the cat of the /etc/Red Hat release file and see what comes out. It should be a reference to running Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7.6. Let's just make sure. And if you're new to Linux, you can always hit the escape key to see what's going on in the background. Makes me always think of the reference to Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Well, hit the escape key and then you can pay attention to the man behind the curtain. All right. So that quickly, we have rebooted the machine and we can log in. Again, I'm just a generic user. I am not going to do any commands by logging in as root and then executing commands. I'm using the sudo command as a prefix command to do anything that requires escalated privilege. Right. Because we're running Red Hat 7, I can right-click on the background and I can choose Open Terminal. All right, there we go. And what I'm going to do is cat out the /etc/Red Hat release file. There we are. And we can see that we chose the kernel for 7.6 and we are running 7.6. Truth is, if we had chosen the kernel for 7.4 and executed this command, we would still end up seeing that we're running Red Hat 7.6. Because we are, but we're running the kernel of the latest, which I think included 3.10.0-957 from right. And how we confirm that is by running the uname space -a command. And there we are. We don't need escalated privilege because we're just doing a read. We're not looking into sensitive data, not hypersensitive anyway for terms of security, but this could be relatively important information you don't want to advertise around the planet. Again, this is a virtual machine. I can destroy it. I'm not concerned about security in my particular case. But we are running Red Hat 7.6, and more importantly, we are running with the latest kernel because we chose that from the kernel line out of the grub menu. All right, thank you for watching the video. I know it took quite a while. I apologize, but the processing time is the processing time when you haven't updated a system in quite a while. I'm going to end the video here. Thank you.